again. Well, after highlighting the importance of media and media theorization in general, and making a distinction between normative theorization and descriptive theorization, and in order to find some analytical assistance, I called for Laswell's model. Remember who says what, in which channel, to who, with what effects, the 5 layers, the 5 areas of media studies or media research, hence media possible theorizations. Well, Laswell finishes his question with what effect. And we're going to start talking about or discussing descriptive theories of media with what effects. Question is why? Why should we start with the end of Laswell's question? That's an interesting question to ask. Well, first of all, because media effects are so important, and the media do have a certain effect on people. We're going to discuss these, the potential of media effects on people and, well, individuals, groups, and so on. Second, because media effects, actually they were, well, media effects theories were the first to set foot on the academic study of the media, and they started ever since the beginning of the 20th century. So with the advent and quick thrive of media industries and technologies, and particularly electronic media, including film, radio, and television, the spread and the great appeal that with which people received these electronic media in the beginning of the 20th century drove a number of psychologists and sociologists to ask the question of how much do the media affect people, how much influence do the media exert on people's minds and psychologies and so on. So effects theories were the first serious attempts to study, analyze, and theorize mass media. And actually they provide analytical and critical sensitization about how far can the media go in impacting, most of the time in a negative way, people's attitudes, behaviors, public opinions, how they perceive reality, what kind of information they have, the amount and the quality of knowledge they have, etc. However, we should pay attention to a very important thing here, which is that among these theoreticians and analysts, there was a great deal of divergence and disagreement. That is, they did not agree on the amount of effect that the media exerts on the public. And that's why we will see different, different conceptualizations of the media effects on society and on people. According to some theoreticians, we will, the media do exert a powerful effect. Others see that the media exert a limited effect. Others consider, the media as having like a minimal effect on people. Well, the divergence and disagreement that we have here, all of it depends on a set of factors. And in the middle of all these factors, the most important element is the audience. That is the person, the individual, and how they perceive, how they receive and perceive and, like, let's say, make sense of media messages. And these factors are how much media literacy do audiences have? What kind of preferences they have? What kind of shows or programs or media materials and contents they watch and they follow and they find appealing to them, what kind of education and knowledge they have, how much connection do they have about the world around them, how much do they know about the world, etc. And most important, how much critical thinking they deploy while following media messages. Now, accordingly, so as not to expand too much on this, we're going to focus on two directions. The first one is a set of theories that assume that the media have a powerful effect on people and individuals, societies, masses in general. And another category of theories, of effect theories, that consider that the media do not have actually a powerful effect on people, but a limited effect on them. Now, we'll start with powerful effects, or powerful media effect theories. These were, of course, the first media theories that appeared between the 1920s and the 1940s. And well, while explaining, I will let's say refer to some stations, to some important periods in the beginning of the 20th century that explain and contextualize some of these theories. Powerful media effects theories assume that the media had a strong and immediate effect on audiences' attitudes, behaviors, and perceptions of reality. And accordingly, we can ask a question: what kind of audiences were there at that time? According to these theories, they assumed that audiences were uninformed masses. They were passive recipients of media messages. So the media manipulated their minds and their brains and psyches and behaviors however they wanted. Now, the first of these theories, that is powerful media effect theories, the first one, the most famous one, is the magic bullet theory. The magic bullet theory, also known as the hypodermic needle theory. Hypodermic needle, syringe. This theory was actually inspired by or from Freudian psychology and behaviorist psychology. It was, most importantly, it draws its tenets and precepts from psychology, mainly from Freud's conception of the subconscious and the centrality of the subconscious mind for individuals. And on the other hand, it is also based on Skinner's formula of stimulus response. And here when we talk about stimulus response, we talk about immediacy, and we also talk about cause and effect, and we also talk about determinism. Determinism is, as a term, we should understand it, means what? Determinism means that something determines something. That something is the direct and absolute and powerful cause of this, of the other thing. So, according to this theory, media have a powerful influence on people's attitudes and behaviors, as I mentioned before, and people are viewed as powerless and vulnerable, that they cannot consciously resist the manipulation of the media, no matter how their level of education, no matter how their level of social, let's say, their social status. And the rational mind is viewed as a mere facade. The conscious, that's what Freud actually believes, well, tries to explain that rationality and consciousness is just a facade. What lies beneath, what lies behind it, the subconscious, the unconscious, is what drives people's behavior, is what determines people's behavior. So, people are incapable of resisting powerful messages. Especially here, when we talk about power, there is hard power and there is soft power. When we talk about soft power, we talk about like a subtle, smart, smooth, gentle way of affecting people. Hence, the mass media are very, very powerful in this direction. They do not exert like physical power, like they persuade you by force, but in a very smart and subtle and gentle, and they play on your emotions, playing on your basic instinct, seduction, erotism, kind of smart persuasion. This is what this theory believes. So people are not very rational, not very conscious to resist the power of media messages. And therefore people have no ability whatsoever to screen out or criticize these messages. So the messages penetrate to their subconscious mind like a needle, hence the hypodermic needle, and they transform how they think and feel. Okay, so far we're going to see a second model, which is the propaganda model. Remember Mr. Laswell? Laswell was the first, media analyst to ponder the question of a certain model of media, that is the propaganda model. According to Laswell, in the 1940s, the worldwide economic depression that was in 1929 and through the 30s, and what followed then, the Second World War and so on. According to him, the worldwide economic depression and political strife had made people particularly vulnerable to propaganda conveyed by the mass media. So, it's very important. Laswell studied how the Nazis deployed the media to mobilize Germans for the war and to chase Jews. Remember Goebbels as Minister of Propaganda. Remember the shots, the TV shots, and the radio broadcasts that were so impressive for Germans, that mobilized the whole of the German people for the war and against Jews. Propaganda model works through projection of master symbols and emotion-charged images, like showing the leader's picture and the use of color, the use of sound, and the national flag, eloquent speech, sensationalism, nationalism. It's very important, like highlighting the importance of the nation and mobilizing people to defend the nation, believing in certain idealism and exceptionalism of the German ethnicity and the superiority of the German race. These factors drew Laswell to conclude that the cunning and deceptive way of using the media in order to draw pictures and images in the minds of people at the time, they lacked education and they lacked rationalism, and they were most of the time vulnerable in front of the power of politicians and media engineers such as Goebbels. Now, I will move to talk about the third theory, and that is the theory of public opinion formation. It was produced by Lippmann, 1992. By the way, this Mr. Lippmann is a great reference in media theorization and media studies in general, especially as far as public opinion is concerned. Accordingly, Lippmann wrote the first book on public opinion in 1922. According to Lippmann, average people could not make sense of the world and could not make rational decisions about their actions. There is this funny description of the average man or average people of the 20s. According to Eric Alterman, average people at the time were compared to deaf spectators. I'm quoting here, deaf spectators sitting in the back row, not knowing what was happening, why it was happening, or what ought to happen. They lived in a world they could not see, they could not understand, and they could not direct. So, Lippmann advocated the placement of control of information gathering and distribution in the hands of a benevolent technocracy, that is a scientist elite, that could be trusted to use scientific methods to sort facts from fiction, and then hand the message, make good decisions for the public so that they could make sound opinion about reality and about current affairs.